Common cancer drugs are running short, forcing doctors to make some tough decisions about treating patients. That shortage is mostly because of supply chain issues. The National Comprehensive Cancer Network says 90% of cancer centers in the U.S. are affected. Austin Westfall is in Charlotte, North Carolina, where he spoke to a doctor and a patient about the problem.
Doctors say that this is not the first chemo shortage that they've dealt with, but it might be one of the tougher ones they've dealt with. They say that there are two main drugs of concern.
Some facilities in the United States, we understand, actually have no carboplatin or cisplatin available.
Carboplatin and cisplatin are two of the most common chemotherapy medications, and the drugs treat many types of cancer like lung and testicular cancer. But right now, not every patient has easy access to them.
I was worried because I didn't want this to be prolonged.
Gail Lass needed carboplatin for stage 2 lung cancer treatment, but her doctor didn't have any and wasn't sure if he'd be able to find it elsewhere. Eventually, her doctor arranged for her to get the chemo at a nearby hospital.
Usually one of us can get the drug, but it's just become more of a challenge.
For now, Dr. Justin Favero says the drugs are being given to people with stage 1, 2, or 3 cancer. That's because treatment aims to cure the cancer in those stages. Stage 4 is when other treatment options are considered.
In stage 4 patients where they're not necessarily curable, a small change of one drug or one regimen to another wouldn't necessarily shorten their lifespan. It would just be not necessarily the ideal treatment that we would typically use.
It's going to get worse, I think, before it gets better.
A survey of 27 U.S. cancer centers shows that 93% have reported a shortage of carboplatin and 70% have reported a shortage of cisplatin.
The current estimates are that up to 500,000 cancer patients per year could be affected by the shortage of these two agents.
Dr. Carlson says it's tough to know exactly when conditions will improve, but in the meantime, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration says that they're working with a Chinese drug manufacturer in order to boost the supplies for the time being. In Charlotte, Austin Westfall, Fox News.
What's old is new again. Gen Zers and even some celebs are moving to old-school flip phones to disconnect. Some big brands are cashing in and even making more vintage-looking phones to harness the nostalgia. Melda Rivera is in Washington with more.
Unplugging nowadays seems nearly impossible with the ability to call, text, and browse the internet from the palm of your hand. But as some people call for simpler times, they're flipping back to a former trend and snapping up a flip phone.
My teenagers, definitely. They're definitely getting it. They're getting a simpler phone.
It would actually be really peaceful, so I'd probably love it.
Gen Zers are leading the comeback as stats show more teens are spending less time with each other.
There was this interesting study out of the University of Michigan looking at 50,000 young people and found that about 2/3 of them are avoiding their friends.
And phones, some tech experts say, may be in large part to blame.
Smartphones, they do a lot of things, but they take away a lot of attention. We've seen what it's done with kids. We've seen what it does with adults.
I mean, real conversations don't really happen anymore.
However, others say they're not ready to trade up efficiency for simplicity.
I personally like to have my iPhone. I like having like a miniature laptop in my hand.
Still, not every foldable phone is reminiscent of the 90s or the early 2000s. Some, like Samsung's Galaxy Z flip phones, are smartphones, and they're seeing a boost in sales.
In 2022, it was our best sales year that we've had yet on the flip and fold category.
The market for foldable phones is expected to grow. The International Data Corporation estimates this year's sales could double from last year. In Washington, Melda Rivera, Fox News.
We'll be back with more right after this.